Okay, let's get started with Adobe Photoshop Elements. Double click to start the program. And we're going to edit. This means you can either make a wholly new project or change existing photographs. So double click on Edit, and this will take us into the main Photoshop screen. Okay, we need a new background because we're not going to edit an existing photograph, we're going to make a new composition. So we're going to click on File, New, and Blank File, basically an empty canvas or piece of paper to work with. Give it a name, let's call it Test in this case. And I want to set the resolution in centimeters, so centimeters, and the resolution to 300. And I want the width to be 14 centimeters and the height to be 20, because these are the same relative proportions as the canvas we're going to use. So click OK, and this gives you a white blank canvas. We can zoom in on this with Control plus and zoom out with Control minus. Control is the key at the bottom left of your keyboard. I want to bring a couple of other photographs into my composition, so I'm going to go to Open. And from the possible photographs here, I'm going to have that one, and if I hold the Control key down, I might also have that one. So I've got a couple of photographs there. Maybe let's have a third one just for fun. 3 photographs that I'm going to use in my final composition. You can have more, but I'm just choosing 3 for today. Okay, now I want to take part of this tree picture into my main composition. So I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool over here on the left. I'm going to draw a box around the bit that interests me. When I'm happy with it, I press Control C to copy. I double click back on my white canvas and press Control V. Now I want to make this a bit bigger to fill the canvas, so I press Control T to transform. And this then gives me little handles so I can stretch it and make it fit better. I can also rotate it if I want to, by going off the edge a little bit, or I could even stretch and make it incredibly long. Hang on. There, like that, so I have a much longer, elongated version. When I'm happy with it, I press Return, the InVio key, on the side of your keyboard. Enter might be the other way of describing it. Now I want to bring a picture of me into it, so I double click on my mask picture here. I don't want to use a rectangle here, I don't want myself too square, I want a softer shape. So I go over here to the left of the toolbar, and I click on the Selection Brush tool, which is this one, not the Quick Selection tool, but the Selection Brush tool. Now I want to choose a brush to use for selecting. I'm quite happy with this one actually, the 300, and it's a soft round 300 pixel brush. And as I paint over my image, you paint by holding the left mouse key down, it draws a bubble. It's like a mask, a selection over me using the Selection Brush tool, and I get a bubble shape over me with little ants walking around it, if you imagine like that. So I'm happy with about that much of me will do for the selection there. I'm happy with my select, maybe a little bit more on my hair, up there. Control C to copy, and then I go back to my main composition on the left, and I press Control V, and there I am. I need to move myself in a little bit, so I go to the Move tool. Now you'll notice actually on the right over here that I'm in a new layer. You must always make sure that you are selecting the layer you actually want to work with. So I want layer 2, which is the one that becomes darker. Go to the Move tool, and then drag myself across. Okay. And then when I'm happy with it, I press the Return key, or I go back to the rectangle key like that. Okay, and you can also see here that I can make myself more transparent with the opacity key here. I can drop myself down so I become more transparent without changing the layers underneath. I can also use this menu here to change the way I interact with the background. So darken, and I keep clicking through using the arrow keys on my keyboard. There's color burn, linear burn, darker color, and it just means that my image on top will interact with the one underneath in a slightly different way depending on which function you've chosen. And I can then use the Move key again. I can move myself around until I'm happy with some interesting shapes that come up. Okay, that's the very basic start to Photoshop. We've got the idea of copying and pasting, changing sizes, and the idea of different layers. Okay, that's the end.